Well, thank you. It's good to be with you all again in this very strange and difficult time we're living in. But we've had some good news about about possible about the vaccine and how it's hopefully going to be out there soon. And we've had good news since November 4th for myself and many other people. And so good news is in the offing, even as we're in this season of Advent, looking towards good news and new things happening. I want to begin by sharing a story from the Old Testament. And it's kind of pieced together from a bunch of different little places, so it's not all one set of verses. The Lord said to Moses, "Send men to spy out on the land of Canaan, which I am giving to the Israelites. From each of their ancestral tribes you shall send a man, every one a leader among them." So Moses sent out from the wilderness of Paran, according to the command of the Lord, all them leading men among the Israelites. Moses sent them out to spy on the land of Canaan and said, "Go up there into the Negev and go up into the hill country and see what that land is like, and whether the people in it are strong or weak, whether they are few or many, whether the land they live in is good or bad, and whether the towns have walls or if they are fortified, and whether the land is rich or poor, and whether or not it has trees in it. And be bold, bring back some fruit of the land." Then at the end of 40 days, the spies returned from the land, and they came to Moses and Aaron and to all the congregation of the Israelites in the wilderness and said to them, "We came to the land to which you sent us. It flows with milk and honey, and this is its fruit." They held it up. And yet the people in the land, they said, "They are strong, and their towns are fortified, and they are very large. And besides, we saw the descendants of Anak there." Caleb quieted the people, and he said, "Let us go up at once and occupy that land, for we will be able to overcome it." And then the spies said to him, "We are not able to go up against those people, for they are stronger than we are." So they brought Israelites an unfavorable unfavorable report of what they had spied out. And they said, "The land that we have gone through as spies is a land that devours its inhabitants. All the people that we see there are of great size, and they are like long-necked giants. There we saw the Nephilim, and to us we seemed like grasshoppers, and we seemed like grasshoppers to them." So, first of all, I would be remiss if I didn't mention, after reading that story, that what that story just completely leaves out, sort of, is that the Israelites were going to occupy a land that already had a lot of people living in it. Yeah, they called them giants, but they were going to occupy a land that already had inhabitants. People had been living there for centuries. They had lives, they had villages, they had families, but the Israelites just decided that because God had told them that they had to occupy the land, that they could occupy it. And whenever we hear that story, we have to read it understanding that a lot of Western colonialism can really be traced back to those stories, that if God tells you it's okay to occupy the land that belongs to somebody else, then it's perfectly okay to go in there and kick those people out and take the land yourself. But with that, I want to begin talking to you about today's topic. The goal is not the peak, it's the parking lot. Now, in climbing, there's a common malady that is called summit fever. And that affliction's main cause is hubris. It can also be caused by inexperience and arrogance, but mainly it is hubris that causes it. And the main symptom of summit fever is a fixation on the mountain peak causing someone to ignore all the other possible danger signs in pursuit of standing on top of the summit. Those who succumb to summit fever may find themselves at the top of a mountain, but very often they do not return from the top of the mountain to share that accomplishment with anybody else. The fact that I'm sitting here today will tell you that I have yet to be stricken with summit fever, but I've had some close calls. So through those near misses, I found an inoculation to summit fever, and that is simple. I tell myself all the time, my goal is not the peak, it's the parking lot. Each time I pull up to a trailhead, I tell myself that while at some point in my journey, I might pass over a mountain peak, that mountain peak is only a highlight on my way back to my real goal, which is the parking lot where my car is so I can get home. By keeping that goal clearly in mind, I'm able to make choices about what role weather and trail conditions will play and where and when to camp, and then finally make the final consideration, how am I going to get back to my car, so that if I happen to alter my plan and avoid going to the mountain peak, or climb a different mountain peak, or take a different trail, or turn around early altogether, it is in order to reach my intended goal, right? Which is what? The parking lot. And then my trip isn't a failure because I didn't get to the peak. It's a success because I got to the parking lot. It doesn't eliminate all the risk, but it certainly helps me to put the dangers in perspective and in context. And so I've taken that lesson off the mountain into everyday life, because we all need to set goals for ourselves, both as individuals and also you as a community need to set goals for where you want to get to. These goals help us organize our lives, prioritize our efforts, enable us to make choices about where to put our time and our energy and our money and all those other resources that are so precious to us. Yet, it's easy to fixate upon the goals or a particular goal to the exclusion of all other things, perhaps even more important things than the goal itself. And then we can mistake the goals for the ideals which we live by, and we can lose sight of who we truly are in the process. When that happens, the chance of us returning to our cores, that which makes us who we truly are, becomes endangered, and our ability to share our accomplishments with others is imperiled. And those two things, right? Being centered in yourself and sharing that centered self with others can give meaning and purpose to our lives. Whatever tragedy and difficulty we may go through, if we can get through it with our centered core and share that centered with others, then even the tragedy can take on some meaning. But losing those in pursuit of a goal strips the goal of its potential power to enrich our own lives and enrich the lives of others. And so avoiding summit fever off the trail begins as simply as it does on the trailhead, by carefully identifying where you want to end up. If you reach your goal, but have no way to return to your foundation, if in your trek to the peak you lose sight of who you really are, and if you cannot share your accomplishments with others, then what good are those accomplishments? What's the meaning? What's the purpose of the goal in the first place? And so any journey that you take should begin with basic questions, not about your goals, but rather about your parking lot, your personal parking lot, your foundation. What is most important in your life? Where do you find deepest satisfaction, meaning, and purpose? What kind of life do you want to live? That is your parking lot, your safe, secure base from which to begin and end any journey to any goal. Placing your ideals at the fore will allow you to adjust your perceived goals as conditions and situations change without compromising your most basic beliefs and ideals, so that in the process, no matter how you adjust your intended course, you will always end up at your final destination. So back to that story. Long ago, that group of sojourners set off on a journey. They set off to go somewhere. It was an uncertain destination. It had been told of only in legend, but was said to be a land of plenty, a land flowing with milk and honey, a land of perfect freedom, a land without hunger. It, in fact, was a place where justice would roll down like water and righteousness like a mighty stream. Those people had escaped from slavery. They had traveled 40 years to find that promised land. They had faced many trials along the way. And finally, after all their troubles, they found the land of their dreams. But before entering that land, they sent out their best soldiers to see what it was going to be like. And when they came back, what did they find out? The news was really bad. There was a giant problem. They came back to their leader and they said, look, we've been to the promised land and it is like we were told it was. There's fertile fields and there's herds of sheep and goats and there's cedar forests and rivers and water. It is a great land, but Moses, we've got a big problem. The land already has people in it, and those people are long-necked giants. What can we do, Moses? All is lost. We'd rather return to captivity in Egypt. We've come 40 years through the desert for nothing. All is lost. It's over. The spirits of the people sunk with those reports of those long-necked giants. 40 years from home, nowhere to go. They were doomed to walk the desert forever. But Moses said, look, we've come all this way to find the promised land, but were we only looking for milk and honey? I mean, he said, after 40 years, maybe we've lost sight of what all this wandering and searching was really for. He told them, we are one people with a great purpose, and if we keep that purpose before us, there's nothing that can stop us, even long-necked giants. Well, we all have our own long-necked giants that keep us from entering our own promised lands. They are those voices in our heads that tell us we cannot be good enough, or we do not deserve to have happiness or love or fulfillment in life. They are the cultural and social expectations we force ourselves to conform to and live up to at the price of our own freedom. They are the self-criticism and blame we lay on ourselves for things out of our control. They are the anger and the resentments that we hold on to when compassion would bring us real peace. They are the ways we chase unmet needs instead of taking responsibility for filling our own cups. They are the ways we are continually searching for something more or something better instead of enjoying the simple beauty that surrounds us. And the list could go on with the way we can all hold up artificial and hurtful goals, the ways we become fixated and lose sight of our foundation and lose sight of ourselves in the process. Now, I'm saying this as a therapist. You could spend a lifetime in therapy trying to figure out where those voices come from, and you may never find it out. But wouldn't it make more sense to take these things that hold us back and turn them into things that can move us ahead? That's what Moses thought when he refused to give in to the grumbling of the Israelites. He told his greatest warrior, Joshua, to go get your best people and get ready to go into the promised land tomorrow morning. And Moses said, I'll be up on the top of the mountain to see what happens. And the next morning, Joshua was ready and the people were ready. And Moses looked down. And as the people entered the promised land, Moses held up his arms. And the higher Moses held his arms up, the more certain the progress of the people became. But before long, Moses got tired. After all, he had already spent 40 years in the desert, right? I mean, he deserved to be a little bit tired. But when he got tired, his arms began to fall. And as his arms fell, the people would begin to slow and turn back. And then his arms went down, his strength would return, and he raised his arms up again, and they would begin to move forward. The people would move forward, but then again, his arms would fall and the people would fall back. And things went on like that for quite a while, with his arms going up and coming down, until someone realized something important. Moses couldn't do it all by himself. So Aaron and Hur came up alongside Moses, and what did they do? They held up Moses' arms. By the end of the day, the people pressed forward, and the long-necked giants decided it was too crowded in the promised land, and they moved on, at least for a while. Now, they'd be back, but they moved on for a while. Moses knew that there was much more to all that wandering than just milk and honey and fat goats. He knew that the Israelites had a mission and a vision set before them. And as long as they held to that vision, as long as they held to their foundation, then they could not be held back. But when they forgot the vision in favor of something else, it was easy to feel defeated and give up. The question we must each ask and answer, what is my vision? Because it's easy to confuse that vision for the peak, as if we must strive our whole lives to reach some long and distant goal. We just keep going and reaching for it, but it's always just out of our grasp. But the place you always need to reach, the place you must always be able to return to, is not that peak, right? The place you've got to get back to is your parking lot, is your foundation, is your core, is your center. Now, in my many years of backcountry travels, I have never once been filled with fear and trembling when I believed I couldn't reach a mountain peak. But let me tell you, when I started to worry about whether or not I was going to be able to get back to the parking lot, that is when I got scared. That got my attention. The thing I have realized about peaks and parking lots is that that peak will always be there the next day or the next week or the next month or the next year. But the only way I might see it again or at all is if I get back to my car. Getting that personal vision is not about looking somewhere out there, but about looking in here, looking in your heart, and holding fast to what you find there, and knowing it is there, and no matter what giants or avalanches you might face, you can always come back to that core. It is knowing, as our faith tells us, we begin at a place of inherent worth. Our trailhead is sacred dignity. That is where we all begin. And as hard as it is to believe that, as much as society tries to convince us otherwise, we all begin from that place of worth and dignity. Whatever peaks we may be called to stand on, it is worth and dignity where we begin and end. So now I want us to try to be Moses for a few minutes. If there's somebody next to you, that's good. If not, maybe you can look to the square next to you on Zoom and pretend you're reaching your hand out to that person. And I want you to hold up your arms out in front of you. Just hold up your arms. And just hold them there. Now, it might take time for some. Keep your arms up, right out in front of you. Yeah. It might take time for some. It might happen quickly for others. But before long, your arms are going to start to drop. Now, turn to that person next to you, or in your imagination, reach out to the person in that square beside you. and join hands. And if you can face each other and join hands too. I'm watching yeah, see? And imagine you're standing there holding hands with each other. When you're holding hands with somebody else, you could stand there almost all day and never get tired. No matter what your personal goals may be, no matter where we get our hope in our lives, none of us can climb those peaks alone. Moses was a great leader. Oh, I'm sorry. You can put your hands down. Didn't mean to forget you. Moses was a great leader, not because he knew everything there was to know, right? He was the first one to admit he didn't know everything. He had no idea how to lead his people in the beginning. But he was a great leader because he knew when to lean on others. Part of the art of reaching our goals without losing our vision, both as individuals and as communities, is knowing that we cannot do it all ourselves. Sometimes we need others to hold our arms up for us. And Ken, your joy today was about how you got help from other people. How you were able to ask for help and help was given because you knew at a certain point you couldn't do it yourself. You needed help. That is what we must do. Sometimes we need others to hold our arms up for us. Because facing long-necked giants isn't easy. That long 40-year journey comes with challenges, and we all need the help of others to help us face those giants. We cannot face them alone. So maybe you haven't found your promised land yet. Maybe you are not sure right now if you can get back to the parking lot. Maybe you don't even know where the parking lot is. I'll tell you what, in the last several months, I have felt often that, like when you go to the airport at night and you park your car and you forget to like mark it or take a picture, and then you're wandering around the airport parking lot for hours and hours, trying to find your car, and you're beeping your keys and you're like, where is it? Where is it? I felt like that so many times in the last several months. But even if you felt like that, that's okay. That is why you are a church community. You guys, and I say this place, right? Because even though you're not in a place really, you are a place. You are a home together, even if you can't be physically together. And those people next to you, whether they're physically next to you or just next to you in the little square boxes on your computer screen, and the faith that we share, they are all here because from time to time we are going to lose sight of the peak, and we will need a safe parking lot, a safe place to stand, a place where we know fear is held with compassion, where hopelessness is met with love, where pain is held with care, and where together we will join hands and walk over the peak and into our promised lands. Lands where we know we are each creatures of infinite worth and sacred dignity. Thus may it be on this day and every day forward. Amen.